Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're concluding our study of the 4 women who are mentioned in the lineage of Jesus. We're not the first to think about these women as a group. I know there have been books written about them um, of a scholarly nature. There have been novels written about them, um, and they intrigue us, and they ought to. They're there for a reason. God is inviting us to ponder them and including them in Matthew's genealogy. When we started this study, we talked about how finely crafted Matthew's genealogy is. Matthew's trained. I mean, he's a highly placed tax collector. This is a man who is educated, who knows how to write documents, um, and he's crafting a genealogy, and it is a classic genealogy. 14 generations between Abraham and David, 14 between David and the captivity, 14 between the captivity and the birth of Jesus. 3 14s is 6 sevens. The seventh, the fulfilling of all of these generations is Jesus being born. He himself is the seventh generation. He's the seventh, and so he fulfills everything. And so there's that. There's just the way that he mentions, particularly David and Abraham, um, and maybe not some other figures he could have mentioned, like Hezekiah or Jacob, Israel. He could have mentioned those names too, but he didn't, because God made two eternal covenants, one with Abraham, one with David, both of which are fulfilled in Jesus. With Abraham to bless all the nations of the earth through his lineage, and with David that his throne would never end. Those promises are kept and can only be kept in Jesus Christ himself. Every one of these stories of these women are important for us to consider, especially for the Jews to consider. I've heard what Matthew does here. I've heard it described as Trojan horsing. The way the Trojan horse, smuggled in the Greeks into the city of Troy, so that they could get the gates opened. Matthew is Trojan. This genealogy is a Trojan horse, containing women, containing foreigners, um, to secretly, almost like it's an evil plan, to secretly open up the Jews against their will, to the gospel. It's not Trojan horsing anything. These stories are told in detail in the Old Testament. And Matthew quite clearly is saying, stop and think about these stories. He's not doesn't have an evil plan. He's not an insurgent. He's not smuggling anything in across a border. He's telling the truth and reminding quite truthfully in this finely crafted genealogy them of so many things, um, that God has always included foreigners in his plan and numbered them among his people. That that we are all in need of grace. That every story, every human story is filled with things that need to be forgiven, with sin. Every lineage is filled with baggage in the background, that maybe stories we might not want to remember. And yet remembering those very stories will share with us the truths that we need, to navigate a sinful world. We are reminded of the way God has arranged things perfectly so that people were where they needed to be at the right time for his will to be achieved. So our own faith is reinforced. We're reminded of the centrality of faith. We're reminded of the centrality of love. We're reminded of the centrality of hope in every one of these stories. And in every one of these stories, we are reminded that we are in need of grace, and that through Jesus Christ, grace is going to be given to us. Um, anyway, um, that's why they're important. And I know that I've just described the tip of the iceberg, um, for why these women are important to remember and why they are included in Matthew's genealogy of Jesus. But I hope that I've got us to think about them and to appreciate them and to be taught by them, um, and encouraged by them. And I've been very happy to spend this time with these ladies and with you as we studied them. We're going to start a study of the book of Colossians. We're going to start a study of the book of Colossians next time. So if you want to start reading that book, it's not like any other of Paul's letters. And then again, it's very much like all of Paul's letters. It follows form. So much of it is identical to things that we read in the book of Ephesians, which was written at about the same time. And yet, there's a way in which it's more like the writings of John later on than anything else that he ever wrote. It's an intriguing book and very deep cosmologically, theologically, as well as very practical. So we're going to start a study of Colossians next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.